Charlie! 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 Charlie!
We head to Cleveland, Ohio at the Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court, where we will uncover the chilling story of Michael Madison, an American convicted serial killer and sex offender from East Cleveland, Ohio. Over a 9-month period in 2012 and 2013, Madison committed the unimaginable, taking the lives of at least 3 women and leaving a community in shock and fear. He was convicted on 3 counts of aggravated murder for these crimes. Join us as we explore the shocking details of these crimes, the legal proceedings that followed, and the eventual sentencing that awaited Madison. From the discovery of the victims' bodies wrapped in plastic bags to the courtroom drama that unfolded during the trial, this story is sure to send shivers down your spine. In order to understand the chilling crimes committed by Michael Madison, it is crucial to delve into his troubled background and early life. Born on October 15, 1977 in East Cleveland, Ohio, Madison's upbringing was marred by a tumultuous family life that would have a profound impact on his future. Michael Madison's parents, Diane Madison and John Baldwin, were not in a stable relationship at the time of his birth. In fact, Madison was the product of an accidental pregnancy, and Baldwin vehemently denied being his father, having no contact with Madison throughout his life. This absence of a paternal figure would prove to be a significant void in Madison's upbringing. From an early age, Madison faced unimaginable hardships within his own family. His mother, Diane Madison, was a severely abusive woman, inflicting both physical and emotional pain on her young son. The scars of this abuse would leave a lasting impact on Madison's psyche, shaping his future actions in ways that were both horrifying and tragic. As Madison grew older, he struggled to come to terms with the complex emotions surrounding his mother. Despite the abuse he endured, he admitted to having mixed feelings over her death. This conflicting range of emotions speaks to the deep psychological scars left by his tumultuous upbringing, leaving him with a distorted sense of right and wrong. It is important to note that while Madison's background provides some insight into the factors that may have contributed to his later crimes, it does not excuse or justify his actions. Many individuals face difficult childhoods and do not resort to violence. However, understanding the traumatic experiences that shaped Madison's early life helps shed light on the complex web of circumstances that led to his descent into darkness. On July 19, 2013, the East Cleveland Police Department received reports of a foul odor emanating from a garage leased to Michael Madison. Officers responded swiftly, unaware of the horrors that awaited them. As they entered the garage, a wave of putrid stench engulfed the air, signaling that something sinister lay within. Their worst fears were confirmed when they discovered a decomposing body lying on the floor. The victim's identity was not immediately known, but the gruesome scene left no doubt that a heinous crime had been committed. The investigation had just begun. The following day, the search for answers intensified as 2 more bodies were found. One was discovered in a backyard, while the other was found in the basement of a vacant house. Each victim was wrapped in plastic bags, callously discarded like pieces of trash. The proximity of the bodies, ranging from 100 to 200 yards apart, suggested a chilling pattern. As the investigation unfolded, law enforcement officers meticulously combed through the evidence, determined to bring the perpetrator to justice. The bodies of the 3 women, identified as Shatisha Sheely, Angela Deskins, and Sherelda Helen Terry, were examined for any clues that could lead to the identity of their killer. The search for answers led investigators to Michael Madison's apartment. Armed with a search warrant, they entered his residence, hoping to uncover further evidence that would link him to the crimes. Inside, they discovered disturbing signs of decomposition, further solidifying Madison's connection to the murders. However, apprehending Madison would not be an easy task. When police arrived at his mother's house, where he was believed to be staying, they were met with a brief standoff. Madison, seemingly aware of the gravity of the situation, did not go down without a fight. Eventually, after a tense confrontation, he was taken into custody without incident. The arrest of Michael Madison sent shockwaves through the community as residents grappled with the realization that a serial killer had been living among them. The sense of fear and betrayal was palpable as the community struggled to come to terms with the magnitude of the crimes that had been committed. As the investigation continued, the focus shifted to uncovering the full extent of Madison's crimes. The search for additional victims became a top priority as law enforcement worked tirelessly to ensure that no stone was left unturned. The community anxiously awaited answers, desperate for closure and a sense of security. In the midst of the investigation, the names of the victims victims became etched in the public's memory. Shatisha Sheely, a young woman who had been missing since September 2012. Angela Deskins, a resident of Cleveland, who was reported missing in June 2013. And Sherelda Helen Terry, a promising 18-year-old who vanished after leaving her summer job at a Cleveland elementary school. These women, whose lives were tragically cut short, became symbols of the devastating impact of Madison's crimes. On July 22, 2013, Michael Madison was formally charged with 3 counts of aggravated murder. The severity of the charges reflected the heinous nature of the crimes he was accused of committing. His bail was set at an astonishing $6 million, a testament to the community's demand for justice. Michael Madison's arrest and subsequent investigation marked a turning point in the search for answers. While the community grappled with the shock and horror of the crimes, law enforcement officers worked tirelessly to build a case against Madison. The trial began on April 4, 2016, with the prosecution presenting a compelling case against Madison. The courtroom was filled with tension and anticipation as the prosecution meticulously laid out the evidence, painting a vivid picture of a man driven by dark desires and complete disregard for human life. The jury listened intently as the prosecution highlighted the sexually motivated nature of the murders. They presented a chilling timeline of events, meticulously piecing together the connections between Madison and his victims. The evidence against him was overwhelming, leaving little room for doubt. Madison's defense attorney, David Grant, entered a not guilty plea on his behalf. However, the weight of the evidence against his client seemed insurmountable. The defense strategy focused on challenging the severity of the charges and attempting to prevent the prosecution from seeking the death penalty. But the horrors of Madison's crimes left little room for sympathy or leniency. Throughout the trial, the courtroom was filled with emotional testimony from witnesses, forensic experts, and the families of the victims. The devastating impact of Madison's actions on the lives of those left behind was palpable. The grief and anguish felt by the families were etched on their faces, a constant reminder of the irreparable damage caused by Madison's heinous acts. On May 5, 2016, the jury delivered their verdict. Michael Madison was found guilty on all 13 counts, including the murders of Sherelda Terry, Shatisha Sheely, and Angela Deskins. The jury's decision came swiftly, spending less than a day deliberating before reaching a unanimous verdict. The weight of the evidence left no room for doubt in their minds. As the guilty verdict was read aloud, a collective sigh of relief echoed through the courtroom. The families of the victims, who had endured months of pain and uncertainty, finally found a semblance of closure. Justice had been served, but the journey was far from over. During the trial, Michael Madison announced his intention to appeal the verdict to the Ohio Supreme Court. His defiance and lack of remorse only further fueled the anger and grief of the victims' loved ones. The scars left by his actions would never fully heal, but the conviction brought a sense of validation and a glimmer of hope for a future free from the grip of fear. On May 20, 2016, the jury recommended that Madison be sentenced to death. The chilling nature of his crimes and the devastating impact on the victims' families left no doubt in their minds that the ultimate punishment was warranted. The recommendation sent shockwaves through the courtroom as the reality of Madison's fate began to sink in. As part of the hearing, one of the victims' father was supposed to step up to the podium to give an impact statement. Prior to the impact statement, Madison was seen smirking during the sentencing, and this smirking caused Van Terry, the father of the victim, Sherelda Terry, to lunge at Madison in anger over his daughter's murder.
How you doing, Your Honor? My name is Van Terry. Father Sherelda Terry. Right now, I guess we're supposed to, in our hearts, forgive this clown who's touched our families, taken my child.
On June 2, 2016, Cuyahoga Common Pleas Judge Nancy R. McDonnell delivered the final blow. She sentenced Michael Madison to death, ensuring that he would pay the ultimate price for his heinous acts. As the sentence was handed down, Madison was seen smirking, a haunting display of his lack of remorse. The courtroom erupted in a mix of emotions. The grief-stricken families of the victims grappled with a complex range of feelings: relief, anger, and a sense of justice served. Van Terry, the father of Sherelda Terry, could no longer contain his emotions and lunged at Madison in a desperate act of rage. Terry's actions were a testament to the pain and anguish caused by Madison's unforgivable crimes. Van Terry was eventually released without charges, but Michael Madison had been sentenced to death and will now live on Ohio's death row. The Ohio Supreme Court voted unanimously to uphold Madison's death sentence on July 21, 2020. This decision solidified the severity of his crimes and ensured that he would face the ultimate consequence for his actions. The chapter of the trial and conviction of Michael Madison had come to a close, but the scars left by his crimes would forever remain. The trial and conviction of Michael Madison marked a significant milestone in the pursuit of justice. The courtroom became a battleground for truth and accountability, as the victims' stories were finally heard and validated. While the wounds caused by Madison's actions would never fully heal, the conviction brought a sense of closure and a glimmer of hope for a future free from the grip of fear. In a shocking and emotionally charged courtroom scene in Detroit, Michigan, a grieving father took justice into his own hands. Fueled by anger and grief, the father attacked Clifford Daniel Thomas, the man found guilty of killing his 3-year-old daughter. The incident unfolded in a Detroit courtroom, leaving spectators in disbelief and scrambling for safety. Thomas was convicted of involuntary manslaughter, felony murder, second-degree murder, and second-degree child abuse. This tragic story began when Thomas was babysitting Jasmine Gordon's young daughter, Jamelia, and son. However, the babysitting turned into a nightmare, resulting in Jamelia's untimely death. The courtroom attack, captured by a local news cameraman, halted the sentencing proceedings and sent shockwaves through the community. As the father's actions unfolded, it became clear that the pain and loss he had endured had pushed him to the edge. This gripping tale of grief, anger, and the pursuit of justice will leave you stunned. Our story takes place in the bustling city of Detroit, where a young girl named Jamelia's life was tragically cut short. It all began in September 2014 when her mother, Jasmine Gordon, entrusted her children's care to Clifford Daniel Thomas, her boyfriend at the time. Little did she know that this decision would have devastating consequences. Jasmine Gordon, a hardworking single mother, left her 2 young children, Jamelia and her older brother, in the care of Thomas while she went to work. She believed she had found someone she could trust to look after her precious little ones, but what unfolded during that fateful day would shatter their lives forever. Later that day, Jamelia was rushed to Henry Ford Hospital, where doctors fought desperately to save her life. Tragically, their efforts were in vain, and the young girl was pronounced dead on arrival. The medical team discovered bruises on her body, and her head and chest showed signs of physical abuse. The authorities wasted no time launching an investigation into the circumstances surrounding Jamelia's death. As the pieces of the puzzle started to come together, a horrifying picture emerged. It became clear that Jamelia had suffered unimaginable abuse while under the care of Thomas.
The medical examiner also testified that it is highly unlikely that this child could have inflicted these wounds upon herself, even if she was clumsy. He indicated that this child had several impacts all over her head.
Fast forward to the courtroom, where justice was finally being served. Clifford Daniel Thomas stood before the judge, awaiting his sentencing for the heinous crime he had committed. The atmosphere was tense, filled with grief, anger, and a desperate need for closure. The courtroom was packed with family members, friends, and concerned citizens, all seeking justice for Jamelia. Among them was her father, whose heartache and anger were palpable. Little did anyone know that this grieving father had reached his breaking point. As the sentencing proceedings were about to commence, the grief-stricken father could no longer contain his emotions. In a moment of sheer desperation, he leaped over the protective barrier and landed a powerful punch on Thomas, the man responsible for his daughter's death. Chaos erupted as spectators scrambled to safety, shocked by the sudden outburst of violence. The commotion forced Judge Margaret Van Houten to halt the proceedings, ensuring the safety of everyone present. The father was swiftly removed from the courtroom and detained, while order was restored. The incident left an indelible mark on the courtroom, a stark reminder of the pain and anguish caused by Jamelia's untimely demise. After a brief hiatus, the sentencing proceedings resumed. The judge, the prosecution, and the defense were all acutely aware of the emotional weight that hung in the air. It was time for justice to be served, not only for Jamelia but also for her grieving family. Jasmine Gordon, the mother who had entrusted her children's safety to Thomas, faced her own reckoning. She was sentenced to 25 years in prison for first-degree child abuse as an aider and abettor, and 15 years for involuntary manslaughter. Her sentences would run concurrently, a small measure of justice for the life lost. During the witness impact portion of the sentencing hearing, Jamelia's paternal grandmother, Deborah McAdoo, took the stand. She spoke passionately about the loss of her only grandchild, expressing her deep grief and anger towards Gordon. Gordon. McAdoo criticized Gordon for entrusting her children to a stranger and lamented that she had not brought Jamelia to her son instead. Assistant Wayne County Prosecutor Laura Weingarten delivered a powerful statement, holding Thomas accountable for the child's death. She argued that he was aware of Jamelia's lifelong illness and had allowed the abuse to continue, resulting in the tragic outcome. Weingarten emphasized the need for mothers to be held responsible for the safety of their children and for abusers to face severe consequences. Before the final sentencing, Jasmine Gordon made an emotional plea to the judge. Through tears and heart-wrenching sobs, she begged for leniency, claiming that she had done her best as a mother. Her words echoed with desperation and remorse, but the judge reminded her of the choices she had made, choices that had ultimately led to her daughter's tragic fate.
You are wholly responsible for what happened to your child. Therefore, I'm binding both of you over to the Wayne County 3rd Circuit Court.
Clifford Daniel Thomas, the man directly responsible for Jamelia's death, also faced the consequences of his actions. He received a sentence of 57 months to 15 years for involuntary manslaughter and 1 to 2 years for resisting and obstructing a police officer. In a surprising turn of events, Thomas apologized to the family, expressing his ignorance and lack of understanding regarding Jamelia's condition. He claimed that he didn't have a clue about what was going on with the child, attempting to distance himself from the full extent of his actions. However, his words did little to alleviate the pain and grief felt by Jamelia's loved ones. As the courtroom proceedings came to an end, the weight of the tragedy hung heavy in the air. The attack in the courtroom served as a stark reminder of the raw emotions and the desperate need for justice. It was a moment that shocked the community and brought attention to the devastating consequences of child abuse. As news of the courtroom attack spread, the story captured the attention of the media. Headlines blared with sensationalized accounts of the incident, drawing public interest and sparking intense debates. The community was divided, with some sympathizing with the father's desperate act, while others condemned the violence. The shocking incident ignited a firestorm of emotions within the community. Many felt a deep sense of empathy for the grieving father, understanding the pain and anguish that drove him to take such drastic action. They saw his attack as a desperate cry for justice in a system that they believed had failed him. The courtroom incident also served as a catalyst for change. Advocacy groups and concerned citizens rallied together, demanding reforms in child protection services and the justice system. They called for increased awareness of child abuse, stricter regulations for child care providers, and improved support for victims and their families. In the wake of the tragedy, the community rallied around the grieving family, offering support and solace. Donations poured in to help cover funeral expenses and provide counseling for the family members left behind. The outpouring of love and compassion was a testament to the community's determination to stand together in the face of tragedy. Healing and recovery became paramount for the family and the community at large. Support groups were established to provide a safe space for survivors of child abuse and their families to share their experiences and find solace in one another. Therapists and counselors offered their services to help individuals navigate the complex emotions that arose from the tragedy. Meanwhile, legal repercussions continued to unfold. The father who had attacked Clifford Daniel Thomas in the courtroom faced his own legal battles. While some sympathized with his actions, the law could not overlook the act of violence. He was charged with assault and faced the possibility of additional penalties.
I am not suicidal. I am not suicidal, and I am innocent. I could have said that I was guilty a long time ago.
Today, we're in the Cook County Courthouse where we dive into the infamous case of Jussie Smollett, the actor who has been convicted for staging a racist and homophobic crime against himself and 5 counts of disorderly conduct for filing false police reports. This story has captivated the nation as Smollett's claim of being the victim of a racist and homophobic attack unraveled into a web of deception and controversy. It all started on a dark Chicago street in January. Jussie Smollett, known for his role in the hit television show Empire, reported to the police that he had been the victim of a brutal attack. According to his account, 2 masked men beat him, hurled racial and homophobic slurs at him, and even tied a noose around his neck. The nation was outraged, and Smollett became a symbol of resilience in the face of hate. As the investigation unfolded, the details of the alleged attack seemed to paint a grim picture of racial and homophobic violence. The media and public rallied behind Smollett, expressing their support and demanding justice. But as the investigation progressed, cracks began to appear in Smollett's Smollett's story. It was revealed that Smollett had hired two brothers, Abel and Ola Osundairo, to stage the attack. The brothers, who had previously worked with Smollett on Empire, confessed to their involvement and provided evidence that implicated Smollett in orchestrating the entire incident. Text messages, financial transactions, and surveillance footage all pointed to a meticulously planned hoax. The motive behind Smollett's actions remained unclear, but theories began to emerge. Some speculated that he staged the attack to gain attention and sympathy, while others suggested that it was a desperate attempt to boost his career. Regardless of the motive, the revelation sent shockwaves through the media and the public, who had initially stood by Smollett's side. As the case gained national attention, Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx found herself at the center of controversy. Fox's office initially dropped the charges against Smollett, citing community service and forfeiture of his bond as sufficient punishment. The decision sparked outrage, with many accusing Foxx of mishandling the case and showing favoritism towards Smollett. However, the story took another unexpected turn when a judicially appointed special prosecutor, Dan Webb, took over the case. Webb's team meticulously re-examined the evidence and presented a compelling case against Smollett. The actor was charged with 5 counts of disorderly conduct for filing false police reports. The trial that followed was a media spectacle, with cameras allowed inside the courtroom to capture every moment. Witnesses, including the Osundairo brothers, testified against Smollett, providing damning evidence of his involvement in the staged attack. The defense argued that Smollett was a victim of a rush to judgment and maintained his innocence. After weeks of testimonies and deliberations, the jury reached a verdict. Smollett was found guilty on 5 counts of disorderly conduct, while being acquitted on a 6th count. The guilty verdict sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry and the public, who had closely followed the trial. And now, after more than 3 years of legal drama, the day of reckoning has arrived. Jussie Smollett stands before Judge James Lynn to receive his sentence. The courtroom is filled with tension and anticipation as the nation waits to hear the consequences for Smollett's actions. The tension is palpable as the nation waits to hear the consequences for Smollett's actions. Cook County Judge James Lynn presides over the courtroom, his gaze stern and unwavering. Jussie Smollett sits at the defense table, surrounded by his attorneys and sheriff's deputies. The atmosphere is charged with anticipation as the judge prepares to deliver his decision.
You are now a permanently convicted felon. Your family, who loves you and supports you, I only want to use the word forgive, because forgiveness isn't even necessary. They're with you so much. They're so tight-knit, but you have to live with the fact that you really put them through a ringer.
Smollett, clad in a face mask that he had worn throughout the hearing, listens intently to his attorney's advice. He remains silent, choosing not to make a statement before the judge announces the sentence. The weight of the moment hangs heavy in the air. Special Prosecutor Dan Webb, known for his unwavering pursuit of justice, stands nearby, observing the proceedings with a sense of satisfaction. He had asked the court to include an appropriate amount of prison time in Smollett's sentence, emphasizing the impact of his actions on hate crime victims. Smollett was ordered to serve 150 days in Cook County Jail. Additionally, he was to pay restitution in the amount of $120,106 to the city of Chicago and a fine of $25,000.
You will pay restitution to the city of Chicago in the amount of $120,106. You are fined $25,000, which is the maximum fine, and you will spend the first 150 days of your sentence in the Cook County Jail.
Gasps and murmurs ripple through the courtroom as the severity of the sentence sinks in. Smollett's face reveals a mix of shock and disbelief. He removes his face mask, a symbolic act of defiance, and rises to his feet. Smollett's impassioned plea echoes through the courtroom, his voice filled with conviction. The emotions in the room are palpable as deputies lead him away, his words lingering in the air.
I'm not suicidal.
Okay?
I am not suicidal. I am innocent, and I am not suicidal. If I did this, then it means that I stuck my fist in the fears of Black Americans in this country for over 400 years and the fears of the LGBTQ community. Your Honor, I respect you and I respect the jury, but I did not do this, and I am not suicidal.
As Smollett is escorted out of the courtroom, he raises his fist and shouts once more, proclaiming his innocence to anyone who will listen. The echoes of his words reverberate through the halls, leaving a lasting impression on all those present.
I am not suicidal. I am not suicidal, and I am innocent. I could have said that I was guilty a long time ago.
The sentencing of Jussie Smollett has sent shockwaves through the nation. The once beloved actor, known for his talent and charisma, now faces the consequences of his actions. The courtroom proceedings have come to a close, but the impact of this case will be felt for years to come. If you enjoyed this video, check out our other awesome courtroom videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.